Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here, joined by my friend Bob Stewart. Bob, how are you today?
Chad Himes. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Good to hear it. You know, Bob, we never know when Dave's going to drop these episodes. Yet today we want to do an episode that is dedicated to someone who recently passed at the time of our recording of this episode. We immediately got to it. Just don't know how long it got to turn around. Bob, who is it we're going to talk about today?
We're talking about Colin Powell, Chad.
Yeah, General Colin Powell, right? I mean,
amongst
he
many
earned
other
that.
things. Yeah, Knight Colin Powell, I think,
Yeah,
right?
You're right. I mean, that people aren't going to know that about him. Yes, he was named an honorary Knight Commander of the Most Honorable Order of the Bath by Queen Elizabeth II, which is pretty freaking awesome, Bob.
Secretary Powell, right? He was the first Black U.S. Secretary of State. So This is a guy that I'm fascinated by people, Chad, that in many ways like kind of come from little, right? He was born to parents who were Jamaican immigrants, and like ultimately like rise to these positions. I guess you'd call them of power, where like the decisions that they are making are influencing millions and millions of lives for good or bad, right? For good or bad.
Absolutely, Bob. I mean, one of the things that jumps out to me was that not only was he injured while serving 2 tours over in Vietnam, not only being awarded medals like the Presidential Medal of Freedom twice, he was the youngest person as well as the first Black person to serve as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, this guy has had a career in the military.
I think that's the first, like, and look, right, he just passed recently. There, as you looked at the socials, there was, some, I don't know, consternation around, his role and kind of some of the things that our military was doing back in the late 80s, early 90s, around the Middle East and some different things. But look, these are positions. When you're put into a position like that, like a lot of times there's no best answer. You're like choosing between a bunch of worst options or something. And just the idea, again, of the gravity of the decisions that somebody like Colin Powell made all the way from back when he was serving in Vietnam. And I'm sure, making decisions with his platoon or whatever to, and the lives of his guys were on the line, all the way up to serving as the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where he's making decisions that are impacting, tens or hundreds of thousands of service members. Like, I can't even imagine the level of stress and what goes into kind of making decisions of that nature.
Yeah, Bob, you have enough decision deciding where to go for dinner sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Especially if my wife's like, hey, can you pick dinner? It's super stressful because I know that like the first 3 options I give her, she's going to shoot them down, right? So yeah, it's like just the magnitude of some of the decisions this guy was making. It's staggering in many ways.
Yeah. On a side note there, husbands that are listening to this podcast, when your wife asks you to pick where you're going for dinner or what you want for dinner, that's a trap.
Oh, I was going to say, it's a setup,
not go there, right? Whatever you want, dear, because whatever you say is not going to be the right answer until you get to the one she wanted anyway. So there's a side nugget for you. Yeah. Bob, General Colin Powell was a man who, yes, he made some hard decisions. Some people might not have agreed with some of the decisions that he made along the way. That's besides the point. The man deserves to be stopped, thanked, and looked at for the life that he had and the power and the choices and the breakthroughs that he made as a person in the military and in the opportunities of the government. One of the things he did have, Bob, was he had his 13 rules for life and work. That's what he called them, the 13 rules for life and work by General Colin Powell. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Some of these we're probably going to just laugh at because they're just so freaking obvious, people. Some of these Bob and I might dive a little bit deeper into. And we'll post the 13 rules in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/win-make-give when this episode drops, so you can see the 13 rules of General Colin Powell. Bob, let's dive into these and then share a few of our favorite quotes.
Before we dive in, I'm always fascinated by, like, just thinking, like, did he come up with these over a lifetime? Did he sit down one day and be like, I'm going to I'm going to write some rules down that I just think are, you know, like the process of going through this is, to me, is fascinating.
Bob, do you know how he did it? I
No.
don't know for sure. I'm not 100% sure on this. I'm going to tell you how he did it. He was writing a book.
Okay.
And he sat down and his ghostwriter said, great, we need the 10 rules. And they came up with 15 and they cut a few of them down and they came up with and then he came out with the 13 rules of work and life. And it's probably a book or part of a book somewhere. That's what I got to guess, just knowing from the experience I'm going through myself right now, where it probably came from.
All right. That makes sense. That I can see. Like the idea that, like that actually, that I can understand that. I guess what I wouldn't understand is somebody just freely being like, or it's hard to comprehend, I guess, somebody freely just being like, I'm going to sit down and make these rules of life. Like, this is what, you know, let me just encapsulate everything I've learned in 40 years of leading people and leading men and women into battle. And I'm just going to constill it all down to these 13 rules. But that makes a lot of sense, Chad.
And if that is what he did, and you know General Colin Powell or knew General Colin Powell, contact us. Let us know. No, he sat down one Sunday afternoon with a glass of something at his side and said, I'm going to give everybody my 13 rules and figured them out. We'd love to know the truth. We're just speculating on it. Yet, Bob, rule number 1, it ain't as bad as you think.
Yeah.
It will look better in the morning. What do you get from that rule from General Powell?
Don't make impulsive decisions. Like that's what I hear when I see that is, you know, sometimes we make decisions. Like I would take this back to battle, right? I bet he came up with this one in battle. Like I could imagine being out in the dark in the jungles of Vietnam and having, you know, like, man, thinking this is not good. This is not good at all. And just being able to dig in. And then, you know, kind of the light of day comes up and you're like, all right, this isn't as bad as like, but impulsively, you know, you might have wanted to take your troops and run out of there. And that might not have been the best thing to do. So I don't know. I just think that, you know, sometimes we make decisions impulsively when if we could just get a little bit of distance from that, you know, that thing that happened that we're having to decide about, we'd probably make a better decision.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we usually get emotional when things go wrong. We get really caught up into that emotional vortex that comes along with it. The opposite of emotion being logic, right? We can't be emotional and logical. So I think it's that, hey, step away, take a moment, take a breath, get some sleep on it, because tomorrow morning it is going to look better. I think that impulse feeling that you had.
You see that, Chad, like Ben's brought this up before, that like type the email out, pound that angry email out, and then never actually send it, right? Because you just let it sit in your inbox there, and you wake up the next morning and you're like, okay, I'm actually not as irritated as I was when that first came up. So let's just, you know, that can just sit in my drafts to remind me to not be impulsive later.
Yeah, perfect segue to rule number 2, Bob. Get mad, then get over it.
You know, my therapist, I don't know if my therapist listens to our podcast, Chad. I'm highly doubtful that she does, by the way. But although I'm always trying to get her, Glenn, if you're out there, like, anyway, the first thing that I see in here, which, by the way, I would not have seen probably 5 years ago, and you know, is permission that it's okay to get upset about things. Right? Get mad. He's like, You have permission to be mad. There's things that are going to happen, and you're going to be upset about them. Now, you need to get over it. This is my wife and I. This is like a philosophy, not like a philosophy of our marriage, but we've both given each other permission inside of our marriage to get upset about things, to be mad. But getting over it is the key, right? Like, look, we're you know, you live with somebody like for years upon years upon years, like things, like, you know, things you get upset about things. Something happens, but it's that holding on to it, Chad, that you know, that's what really causes the damage in a relationship, right? It's not the fact that you got mad at each other. It's the holding on to it, not resolving it, right? So I guess the second half of that, the get over it, right, would be like, go find some resolution to that thing if you're upset about it.
Yeah, you don't want that resentment building up, like we know we've talked about on the podcast before, and Ben talks about the resentment circles. We don't want to let that resentment build up that comes along with it, Bob. It's that kiss and make up before you go to bed concept. It's that, you know, why would you drink poison hoping to be poisoning somebody else? It's not working. You've got to get over it, as you said. All right. So then we get to rule number 3. Bob, what's rule number 3 from General Powell here?
Be careful what you choose. You may get it.
Ouch.
Right?
Ouch, right? That's the old, be careful what you wish for. It might come true. Absolutely. Because how many times do we choose the easy path and then we end up with it? We choose the wrong option and then we end up with it.
We don't normally do this, but I think I'm going to get just a little bit political, and it doesn't matter to me which side you lean on, the left or the right. Okay.
Sure.
So let me kind of, and this is a be careful what you choose. You might just get it sort of scenario. There's a law that was passed in Texas recently around abortion. And it's this idea that the government, it's been decided in the Supreme Court, and I guess that could change at some point, but it's been decided that abortion is legal in the Roe versus Wade. And so Texas did this kind of end around, and they said, well, we're going to let private citizens sue. And look, okay, it doesn't matter left or right. You either agree with that or you don't agree with it, right? But right now in front of the Supreme Court, there are some Second Amendment supporters who are basically saying this is a horrible idea because this could get applied to things like gun ownership, to where you could have liberal states go and make laws that say, well, I know it's legal to own guns, but we're going to create this kind of loophole around where private citizens can. So that is definitely one of those things where it's like, hey, be careful what you just got because you might get it. You know what I'm saying? So Look, and I would have to imagine, because he was, even though Colin Powell was he worked for Republican presidents, he was a pretty moderate Republican. And I would have to imagine that, Chad, this particular, axiom or whatever you'd call this rule came out of watching this real partisan, well, we want this. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but are you considering all of the ramifications of what you're asking for right now?
Sure.
That's a great rule, man. Be careful.
And Bob, you're right. You could take that all the way to political is obviously a very obvious one, right? Be careful what you choose. Be careful who you vote for. They might win.
The other, right now, they're talking about potentially the Democrats in Congress eliminating the filibuster. Right. That's another one of those. Be careful what you
might want that
for.
later.
Yeah, you might want it later. Yeah. So I think that's a really powerful one, and I think a lot of times we choose things, or we make without really considering the full ramifications of it. Back in our Active Rain days, Chad, when we had Active Rain, and you were around a lot then, and we had to make these rules and these decisions on what people could write about, and this is the early days of social media, and in some ways, I kind of felt like we were on the forefront of this whole, this discussion today of people being censored or whatever, right? And we made all these rules, and but we really did have to take this because people would reach out and say, I can't believe you let them write this and post this on there. And I'd be like, look, it doesn't matter if I do or don't agree with it. I just agree with their right to be able to post that. You might not agree with it, but you don't want them coming back to me later and saying, I can't believe you let him post this thing. Right. So I don't know. I guess that one hits particularly close to home for me in a lot of ways.
The opinions expressed by Bob Stewart during this When We Give episode.
There was no right or left there. Right? It's just hey, be careful. On either side, I think it's an important. But it's getting harder and harder these days, right? With the
absolutely, it is. You're right. All right, number 4. Let's move on the general's list here. Don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. Bob, don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. What do you take from rule number 4?
When I read into this a little bit, I think that he believed there were times when he had to make decisions where there were facts on both sides, and he really just this says to me the world's not perfect. Mm-hmm. We have to sometimes choose a path, make a decision where there may be some facts on both sides of the equation. And he's basically, to me, here saying, don't not make a good decision because there might be this adverse fact. I think this more than anything signifies it's an imperfect world, and sometimes decisions can be made when the fact is when there may be some fact that
there's facts on everything, right? I
Yeah,
can
on
give you
both
facts
sides.
for being healthy. I can give you facts for eating certain things. I can give you facts for, this, that, and the other thing. How many times do we hear decisions about, well, red wine's good for you? No, wait, wine's now bad for you. Coffee's good for you. No, wait, coffee's bad for you, right? There's always going to be adverse facts. You can't let that stop you from what you believe to be a good decision.
To boil it down just on that silly little, wine is good for you, wine's not good for you. Like, Chad, the good decision you make every night, despite the adverse fact that you may have heard somewhere that wine wasn't good for you or some study may have been done, is you and your wife enjoy sitting down with a glass of wine at night and relaxing and unwinding and sharing that and talking over it. And that's the good decision you're making, right? Is that like, we're going to enjoy this no matter what that adverse study might have said.
Correct, because I can find you facts that make anything you think you're doing a bad thing. So don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. Bob, what do we got for rule number 5?
Rule number 5, check small things, Chad. Check small things.
Yeah, I think that's how important is it that we talked about this so many times. When you get the small things right, the big things fall into play.
You're a master of this? Ben.
Of course.
I got an email from him today. This is not like we have a big operation, lots of stuff going on. Recently, we had lost a really amazing employee. Noel, I'm sad, my friend, that you're leaving. If you listen to the Win Make Gift podcast, but moving on. And he'd been doing this one role for like 5 years and does it very well. And he's transitioning it to somebody else. And the person taking the role on, Chad, yesterday sent this email out, and it came from the wrong email address. Basically, it should have come from like newsletters ad, and it came from like a person on accident. Ben spotted that last night at midnight. He like forwarded a couple of us. He's like, "Anybody spot anything weird about this?" And obviously, when you look at it, you're like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll get that fixed." But I'm like, the million things going on, like you checked this small detail, like that is amazing, right?
Yep.
Amazing.
It always comes down to the small things, Bob. How often do we attempt to do the big thing and we forget just that little small thing? Like, is the door unlocked? We're attempting to open this big door, but we don't check the small thing of making sure we just unlocked it first, right? So check small things, because small things do matter. Bob, keep going. Give me the next rule off General Powell's list.
Share credit.
Well, again, another thing Ben does really, really well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Take all the blame, pass all the credit.
Yeah, folks, share credit. You are never alone in success, ever. Even if really you did it all. There was somebody behind you that gave you the idea. There was someone behind you that took care of other things. Heck, there was your partner behind you that took care of things around your house while you did whatever that was. There's always someone. So anytime you are ready to receive credit, I challenge you to stop and think, who is it that you can be sharing that with? Because there's always someone worth sharing it with.
Here, I'll get a little vulnerable with you for a second, Chad. Like
more so than your therapist and your political statements?
No. I had a big ego at some point. And it's not to say, by the way, that I've totally fixed that, but I think it came from maybe not having a ton of self-confidence, like in high school and junior high. And anyway, and I've worked with, really, I've had two kind of partners, leaders, like people, mentors, guys that I looked up to and I worked with alongside of, Jonathan, you knew, and Ben, and both of them.
Wait a minute. Only those two? I don't make the list? Forget you.
You're like my peer. These guys I looked at as like anyway, I love you, my friend. But they were both masters of sharing credit. And with Jonathan early on in my career, it used to baffle me a little bit why he was so like deflective of the credit. And I guess at that time in my career, because I did have these, my ego wasn't in check yet, and I hadn't kind of explored why I even had that. Like I was more than willing to like step into that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, wow. If somebody wants to praise us, like I'll take the praise. But through the process of working with him and through the process of working with Ben now, like I realize now that they do that because it builds their people up. And like, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me originally. I think I was probably too immature or whatever. But so now I'm all about that. And like, this happened yesterday to me. One of our partners in one of the businesses had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need this thing." And this is because Ben's done this to me so many times. He'll introduce me to somebody and he'll praise me in their eyes, like kind of sharing. And so I'm doing that now. Like almost every introduction I make to somebody inside of our company, to somebody outside of our company, if I'm in any position to influence that person who I'm making the introduction to, right, I'm gonna lavish praise and credit on Zach or Kyle or whoever it is as I'm making that introduction. And it makes a difference. In fact,
sharing credit is going to build loyalty in the people around you.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Build others up, sharing credit. So far to me, these are great rules. And I'm going to come back to you at the end, Bob, and I'm going to ask which one, if you took one rule. Right now, halfway through the list, even though we've already got some great ones, this might be the leading one for me. Next one on the list, as we keep going down the list, remain calm, be kind. I love how these aren't two different rules. It's not remain calm and be kind. It's one rule that he's put them together, even though it's the two sentences. It's remain calm, be kind. Bob, what do you take from this rule?
I think, Chad, it's interesting you point that out. And I think that pointing that out is important because I might have actually said something different before you pointed that out. But as you point that out, what I think is most of the time that we're unkind, it's because we've lost our cool or our calm. Right? Like, in fact, it's probably exclusively when you are unkind to somebody, it's because you've lost your calm or your cool. And so if you can't remain calm, what he's saying is, it's pretty likely that, if you're a hothead, you're blowing up, like you're going to be unkind to somebody. So I love the fact that it is, as we look at this document, it is two sentences: remain calm, period, be kind, period, but they go together seamlessly.
Yeah.
Do you agree, or do you think that's why he did it that way?
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I noticed this next rule is the only other rule where he does this same thing. Have a vision, period. Be demanding, period. He puts them together. And that brings
same reason, right?
Exact same reason. And that makes me think of a quote Ben used to say for years. He always said, no one will jeopardize the mission. And there were people that he had to part ways with that he might have liked or that might have just been good people, but they jeopardized the mission. He had a vision and he was demanding that the vision be fulfilled and everybody be going in the same direction.
I got you know this. We were doing something together last week and I got in trouble. I don't get in trouble very often around here, but I did get in trouble and rightfully so. I'd let something slip, something that was on my plate, I hadn't delivered on it. And he was demanding him very forward. He didn't, I don't think, probably within minutes of him hearing about it, had reached out and told me to know in certain terms, fix it. And it was demanding, right? But he's demanding because that drop that I had is kind of a part of this grander vision of his. And so, me knowing that vision and him being demanding because of that vision, Chad, I didn't take it was taken as it should have been taken, which is I take the blame. I effed it up and I'll go fix it. Right.
And I think that's also why it's rule 8, not rule 1.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's earned the right. If he were to live by these 13 rules, that he waits to make the good choices. He gets mad, but then gets over those things, right? He's careful. He's not letting facts stop a good decision. He checks those small things, as you've already proved. He shares the credit, as you've already shared, right? He remains calm and he'll always be kind. Now he's allowed to have that vision and be demanding because he's built up that almost those deposits with you that when this has to happen, he's there with you. I think, again, someone might find another document where it's in a different order, but I will bet you this was never number 1 on General Powell's list, and this was one of the reasons it wasn't.
Yeah, that's very insightful, Chad. That it is down the list because of And you're able to do that because of all of the other kind of work you've put in. That's smart.
Yeah, let's go on, Bob. Rule number 9. Read it out for everybody.
You cannot make someone else's choices. You should not let someone else make yours.
Can it be clearer than that?
Right?
I mean, that's one of those rules that's kind of pretty obvious, I think.
You know what rings in my head, that kind of if we're applying some of Colin Powell's rules here to the philosophies that Ben talks about and then we talk about in the Win, Make, Give podcast, you can't motivate the unmotivated is for some reason, that's what I think of here, right? You can't make someone else's choices. Like we can't choose what that person's potential could be, right? We see potential in people, but we can't choose how they're going to deliver on that potential, right? We can't decide if they're going to do the work or not, Chad. We can't decide if they're going to commit to the process or not. We can't decide if they're going to track their net worth or not. Like we want to, then we get upset when they don't do it. But what Powell's saying is you can't make that choice for them.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
They have to decide to motivate themselves. They have to decide to do the net worth tracker. They have to decide.
Callback to other episodes in the past. You're doing a great job there, Bob, of giving me some callbacks to episodes. One, that's why I always say potential's one of those words that I really hate. We had that conversation. Hate's a strong word, but I do not like the word potential at all because of that. And a pet peeve I have that hopefully you all listened to our pet peeve episode recently. I got a few comments on some good laughs on that one. Yet I'll tell you another pet peeve I have, Bob, and you just brought it up. You can't motivate anybody. So one of my pet peeves are motivational speakers because there's no such thing. I can inspire somebody, and boy, we hope that the Win, Make, Give podcast is inspiring you. We can't motivate you. You have to motivate yourself. You can't make someone else's choices, and you shouldn't let someone else make yours, for rule number 9 from General Powell.
I love the second part, and I kind of left the second part off as you shouldn't let someone else make yours. I think a lot of times, I don't know this because I've been super fortunate to be able to work, to have, career that I love doing. I love showing up to work every day. I love the people I work with. I bet though that a lot of that like professional angst is because of letting someone else make a choice for you. Like people stay in a job because that their spouse thinks that they, going to start your own business is a cavalier decision, or there's just look, and sometimes, maybe it's to save the marriage and for the right reason or whatever. But man, I think that decisions that genuinely, someone else makes that you're not fully on board with are some of the most detrimental decisions that will just play out throughout your life.
That is a great insight to that, Bob. All right, you've mentioned this word ego. So here in rule number 10, avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. Avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. Bob, you mentioned ego a little bit earlier about having one and stuff. What do you take when you hear rule number 10 from General Powell?
The ego is dangerous, man. It is dangerous. It's especially dangerous if it becomes kind of your identity. That's what he's saying, right? Your position. If it's wrapped up in your identity, because what that means, you can't change your opinion then. Mm-hmm. I saw a thing recently. It was a meme, right? It's like an Instagram meme or something. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was basically something to the effect of, it's okay to like change your positions over time, right? New information emerges,
sure.
Things, something that you said before that you didn't believe in, and now you can see that other side. Like that's okay. But man, when you start tying your ego to your beliefs and your position, that you can't change it then, right? Because then you look foolish, or then you look like it's just, that's a good one.
What if he had tied his ego to being Secretary of State?
Yeah.
Then when he was no longer Secretary of State, what would happen to his ego?
Yeah, it'd be.
Right. You can't tie it literally to a position either. You can't tie it to, oh, you're the manager, you're the supervisor, you're the leader, you're the founder of the company. If you tie your ego to that, if something ever happens with that company, that organization, that whatever it is, so does your ego. It comes crashing to the
I
down.
look at it as position, like the position I'm taking on an idea, or the position I'm not necessarily, but it could absolutely also be on like my role or my position. So I think either one of those interpretations of this, it makes sense.
Bob, you for the longest time when you were at Active Rain, what was your title over there? You had a fancy title you gave yourself.
Chief Evangelist.
Yeah, Chief Evangelist. Now, I'm going to believe, having known you back then, part of your ego was absolutely tied to being the chief evangelist of Active Rain. And what happened as Active Rain started to go through changes?
I literally left the industry. Like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, I'm out of here. I left the industry for a while. Ben saved me, pulled me back. Yeah.
That position changed. That position fell from what it was in its glory day, and your ego fell along with it. That you went off to lick your wounds somewhere.
That's why I'm in counseling, Chad. Thanks.
Oh, Bob, I'm sure there are a lot of reasons you're in counseling.
Yeah, my trauma runs much deeper than the Active Rain experience.
All right, Bob. Rule number 11. Read it out to us.
Don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. I love that.
Yeah. What do you get as you say it? Bob, audience, I didn't give Bob these. I came in today and Bob said, hey, what do you want to record? And I said, well, we heard that General Powell just passed away and I was just Googling him and here's what I found. Let's talk about it. So I haven't given Bob any time to review these. So when he's telling you what he's feeling, you're getting it off the cuff here from Bob today. Bob, what do you take when you hear don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers?
So this actually, this is two things. This is like two dramatically different things. It's don't listen to the naysayers.
Yep.
Right. Don't. And look, there's probably a million memes out there, Chad, that are some variation of this, right? Like, but people. Ben is such a great. Again, he's a good example of so many of these things. It's almost as if he's read these rules. Like, people are going to tell you that your idea is too big. You can't do it. Who do you think you are to do that? Right? He was the dirty high school kid from also Washington who grew up in a 400 square foot shack and didn't have running water and power. Like, who do you think you are to build what you've built? Like, you can't listen to that stuff. So that'd be the first. Like, don't listen to the naysayers. The real hard part is sometimes those naysayers are like in your circle somewhere. Right.
That's true.
Sometimes they're your family. Sometimes they're your spouse. Sometimes, they're a sibling or something. Like, that can be a real challenge, right? To actually live this rule can be a real challenge for some people. But the others, don't take counsel of your fears. Man, I'm going to try to say this without sounding pompous. Every kind of big breakthrough in my career has been on the other side of some fear that I didn't want to conquer. I remember when we first started doing the Active Rain stuff and we did the rain camp and we went out, going up in front of a group of, like, for me, originally going up in front of 10 people, I was petrified. I was talking in front of 10 people, and then it was 50, and then it was 500. Like, that was so paralyzing. That fear was, but I wasn't going to let that fear kind of dictate, right? And every big thing has been on the other side of some fear. What they call it, your drunk monkey. I don't know. Yeah. I think that's my favorite kind of, little saying. I think
the little devil on your shoulder, the little devil who pops up on your shoulder all the time in the cartoons and stuff like that.
Right? Don't listen. Like, don't take counsel in that drunk monkey or that devil on your shoulder.
Yeah, I actually saw a meme go by the other day, Bob, and I don't know whether I want to say God bless the person who invented memes or curse you, person who invented memes, but I saw a meme go by the other day and it said something like, don't take constructive criticism from someone who's never constructed anything.
Yeah.
Right? So don't take counsel from those people or those thoughts in your head that are not helping get you where you need to be.
Easier said than done, but so true.
Yes. I mean, a lot of General Powell's rules here are easier said than done. Yet if you just did your best to check the small things on each of these rules, now all of a sudden it's easier to get mad and then get over it. It's so much easier to have the vision and be demanding. It's so much easier for those things. You're right. These sound simple. They're not necessarily easy, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that
Bob,
stuff.
number 12, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. That's just a lot of syllables in my mouth and stuff, but perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. This is the one rule that I love the rule as I read it. I think it's great, right? If everybody's optimistic, all of a sudden we 100x something. Forget 10xing something. When you've got all that optimism and perpetual optimism happening, you're going to 100x something. Sometimes to me, when I read the word optimism, though, that little red light goes on in my head that says, whoa, 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 we got a lot of optimistic people who all just want to put on the happy hat, right? And the yellow hat there and just think all the wonder things that are going to happen. What do you take when you hear perpetual optimism as a force multiplier?
You know who like this? Well, I have a Ben story around this. I think I have a Ben story.
You do?
Amazing. I do, yeah. But you know who pops in my head is Gary Vee. And look, love or hate that guy or think that he's built something really amazing with VaynerMedia and all the stuff they're doing and the companies that they're working with in the social environment. And I really do believe if you're a Gary Vee fan, you know that he's a massive New York Jets fan. Like, I think that dude's going to own the New York Jets one day.
That's his goal.
It's going to be on the back of like this perpetual optimism this guy has. And I think really like the common thread is I've met Gary once, and he did a thing with us for a rain camp. We did a virtual rain camp he was on. And this dude is like perpetually optimistic. And over a long period of time, just like compound interest, right? Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. Compound interest is a force multiplier. It multiplies things at higher intervals because of the longevity of it. Here's my Ben story. The first time I ever went, this was within months of working with Ben. I'd known him for years, which is one of his styles, right, Chad?
Yeah.
But the first time we went to like a conference and we were selling our software, and I've maybe told this story on Limit Give before, but he wanted to sell 200 of the software like in a 4-day conference. And after day one, we'd sold like 7. And he was like, okay, like he came back. He's like, how many we sell? We're like, we sold 7. And he's like, all right, this is how we're going to sell it tomorrow. And the next day we sold like 9 and we had 16 now at 200. And the next day we sold like 11. And now we've got like 20 of 200 and we're to the third day. And he's still walking in the building on the, after that third day or going in that fourth day. He's like, we're going to do this. And we, by the way, never got to 200. We got to like 185 or 190. We sold a massive amount the last day. But it was like this perpetual optimism. It was just like, we're just going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And to me, it was like, you said, I see the word optimism. And I think, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like in my head at that time, I was like, this guy's insane. We're not going to sell 200. But, he just was optimistic.
And I'm loving your take on this, Bob, because, and maybe it's just where my mind is, where your mind was on this one. Again, we're both reviewing these kind of fresh. I saw perpetual optimism as a force multiplier. As soon as I hear I'm thinking it's a team. I'm thinking it's a group. But you took that down to, whoa. What if you just had perpetual optimism, right? What if you were just that hamster running on that wheel of optimism the way Ben was or the way Gary Vee was and always just believed? And when I look at it that way, I've been that way. It's always going to work out. It's always going to work out. And my wife always says to me, Nita always will say to me, it always seems to work out for you. Well, of course, because I'm perpetually optimist about it. I know it's going to.
So my wife and I have this same kind of dichotomy where she's a little bit more kind of, looking for the problem that's going to pop up. And I'm just like, I don't know, like I'm a perpetual optimist. I really am throughout all the traumas I'm working through with my therapist, the things that, the ups and the downs and the active range sold out from under us and all the stuff, right? Like, I believe people are good. I believe that, there's a reason that we're here and I'm optimistic about every day. So And over the long term, that it can be powerful.
I appreciate your take on it because you just changed my mindset on rule number 12. All right, rule number 13, Bob. It's not the Nike quote yet. It might as well be. Colin Powell says what to us for rule 13?
It can be done, Chad. It can be done.
There you go. Okay. I don't think there's much to say about that one. I think that one's a pretty obvious one. Let me recap the 13 rules of General Colin Powell at work and life. And then Bob and I are going to share a favorite quote that we found from General Powell there as we wrap this up and celebrate this man's life. 1, it ain't as bad as you think. It will look better in the morning. 2, get mad, then get over it. 3, be careful what you choose. You may get it. 4, don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. 5, check small things. 6, share credit. 7, remain calm, be kind. 8, have a vision, be demanding. 9, you can't make someone else's choices. You shouldn't let someone else make yours. 10, avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. 11, don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. Number 12, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. And number 13, it can be done. Bob, which one of these rules is your number one that you're going to circle on that list?
Don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. I think I don't look. There's a lot of really. I mean, a lot.
There's 13 great ones, right?
A lot of this advice is really good. I don't know. Maybe it's perpetual optimism. I don't have a favorite. I can't pick. There's some really good ones in here.
There really are. There really are some good ones. And I'm saying, because of the way you've twisted my thought on it, that perpetual optimism is a force multiplier might be the one that I walk away from here saying, now that rule is a powerful one. Can we always have that optimism? Doesn't mean we're wearing rose-colored glasses, but we have perpetual optimism. Bob, give me a quote from General Powell that maybe you found while you were doing a little last-minute search when I warned you that you like.
So this is, there are no secrets to success. It's a result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. And the reason I love, I used to write a lot of headlines for newsletters and different things and blog posts. And there's an article called Headline Hacks, or a guy wrote this book, so kind of an ebook back in the day called Headline Hacks. And one of the headline hacks that gets a massive amount of openings is the secret to something. People are looking for shortcuts. And I just think that this idea that he understands that there are no secrets to success. There are very few shortcuts, right? It's a result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. I love that quote. I think that is really powerful.
That's a great one. Thanks for sharing that, Bob.
What do you got?
Here's what I got when I was looking up some quotes from General Powell that really stood out to me. And it's, leadership is all about people. It is not about organizations. It is not about plans. It is not about strategies. It is all about people motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered. And just that last line, you have to be people-centered. I think that is such a powerful message. We try to share that one on Win, Make, Give all the time. I think we hear that often from Ben when he's sharing a specific lesson. Doesn't almost matter what the lesson is. It always comes down to, is it about the people? Am I lifting the people up around me?
Love it.
Yeah. All right. So General Powell, we salute you and the impact you have made in our world. We salute you for what you brought to us. These 13 rules that I will be posting in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Win, Make, Give. And if any of General Powell's rules are ones you know somebody needs to hear, we're going to ask you to go out there and share this episode with them, because this man's words deserve to be shared. And until our next episode, do good.